Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. Today we are bringing you some $100 budget gameplay with 4 very different decks. So let's hop right into it and see who's bringing what. First up, we have Chandler on Orca Siege Demon. This Rakdos deck has been requested in abundance in comments of previous videos, so here it is. This deck plans to grow its commander through aristocrat shenanigans, and then use spells like Fling to deal massive damage to players or creatures. Chandler keeps an opening hand of a Mountain, a Snow Swamp, Fire Diamond, Night's Whisper, Tevesh Sot, Felden of the Third Path, and Solemn Simulacrum. Up next we have Shelby on the partner pairing of Toggo and Ikra Shadiki. This deck's main focus is to get rocks from Toggo onto creatures with Death Touch so he can control creatures on the board. Ikra's mostly there for an extra color splash and for some life gain if needed. And I almost forgot to mention he's companioning Obosh for some extra damage fun. He'll keep an opening hand of a Mountain, Command Tower, Rockfall Vale, Highland Forest, Keen Sense, Valduk, and Mayhem Devil. After Shelby, we have Jason on Meren of Clan Neltoth. I'm sure all of you are familiar with what this deck does, but just in case you aren't, it's all about Golgari Reanimator. He'll use this commander to get as many experience counters as possible and reanimate powerful creatures. Jason keeps an opening hand of 2 Swamps, a Soul Ring, Altar of Dementia, Vivian on the Hunt, Grim Haruspex, and Massacre Worm. And now last but not least, we have Matt piloting Lightpaws, Emperor's Voice. This is a mono-white enchantment-based Voltron deck that plans on casting as many auras as possible to get Lightpaws to trigger and get him even more auras. In fact, I'm going to be keeping a tutor counter for him just for the fun of it. He'll keep an opening hand of 2 Plains, Sigarda's Aid, Mask of Law and Grace, Minimus Containment, Armored Ascension, and Idyllic Tutor. We're about to hop right into the gameplay, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you won't want to miss it. Big shout out to our patrons, we really appreciate the support. There are links to our Patreon down in the description below, as well as links to the deck list, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord. Our channel is also partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or magic related products, check out our affiliate link in the description. We're also partnered with Inked Gaming, so if you're looking to make any custom playmats, use that affiliate link as well. Now, let's hop right into the gameplay. It looks like Chandler wins the die roll, and he'll start off with a Snow Swamp, and then he'll pass to Shelby, who starts his turn off with a Highland Forest tapped, and then he'll pass to Jason. Jason will of course play his Swamp, and then he'll tap it to cast Soul Ring, and then he'll tap his Soul Ring to cast Altar of Dementia, for quite the intimidating turn 1, and then he'll pass the turn to Matt. Matt will play his Plains, and then he'll just pass the turn to Chandler, who will play a basic Mountain, and he'll tap for 2 and cast Fire Diamond, which enters tapped, and then he'll pass the turn to Shelby, who will play a Command Tower, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason, who will play a Swamp, then he'll tap for 3 to cast Midnight Reaper. The turn is then passed to Matt, who will play a Plains, and then he'll immediately tap for 2 to cast Lightpaws, and then he'll just pass the turn to Chandler, who has not found his 3rd land drop yet, so he'll start by tapping for 2 to cast Night's Whisper, drawing him 2 cards and losing him 2 life. Unfortunately, he doesn't find it though, so he has to move to cleanup, discard Rakdos Signet, and then he'll pass the turn to Shelby. Shelby will play a Rockfall Vale as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 3 to cast Toggo, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason. And Jason starts off by tapping for 3 to cast Grim Haruspex, then he'll play another Swamp, and then move to combat, and he'll swing for 3 at Chandler, and then he'll pass the turn to Matt. And Matt will start off with another Plains, and then he'll tap for 1 to cast Sigarda's Aid, and then he just passes the turn to Chandler, who will unfortunately miss another land drop, so he'll just cast Arcane Signet, and then he'll pass to Shelby. And Shelby will start off with a basic Forest as land for turn. This will trigger landfall and get him a rock token. He'll then equip the rock to Toggo and then pass the turn to Jason. And Jason will play a Baron Morris land for turn, and then he'll move to combat and swing for 3 at Chandler with Grim Haruspex. Chandler's getting a little tired of being picked on, so he decides to tap for 2 and Infernal Grasp the Haruspex. And Jason decides to respond to it by sacrificing Grim Haruspex to his Altar of Dementia to mill 3, draw a card, and lose a life. And since Infernal Grasp loses its target, Chandler doesn't have to lose 2. And Jason will mill a Forest, a Tranquil Thicket, and a Bajuka Bog. He'll then just pass the turn to Matt. And Matt will start off with the Plains, and then he'll cast Minimus Containment on Altar of Dementia. When it enters the battlefield, Lightpaws will trigger, and Shelby will respond to that trigger by throwing a rock at Lightpaws. However, Matt has a response, and you already know what it is. He'll flash in his Mask. And this gives it protection from red and black, and since Toggo's red, Lightpaws is saved. And Matt gets to search his library for 2 auras now. And those 2 auras are Flicker Form and Shield of Duty and Wisdom. He'll then move to combat and swing for 2 Commander at Jason, who has no choice but to take it. The turn is then passed to Chandler, who will immediately tap for 4 to cast Solemn Simulacrum, and this will find him another Snow Swamp to the battlefield. The turn is then passed to Shelby, who will immediately tap for 3 and cast Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. He'll then play Rakdos Carnarium, and he'll pick up his forest off this. He'll also trigger Landfall, getting him a rock, and he'll immediately equip it to Valduk. After this, he moves to combat, makes his 3/1, and he'll help Chandler out by swinging at him so he can block it to draw a card, and that's exactly what they do. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he will immediately drop Massacre Worm. Its ETB ability will resolve, and this will kill everybody else's creatures, causing Matt to lose 2 life, and Shelby to lose 4. After this, Jason will move to combat and swing for 3 at Matt, who takes it, and then he'll pass the turn to Matt. He'll start his turn off by playing another Plains, and then he'll tap for 3 to cast an Idyllic Tutor. He'll search his library, and he'll find all that glitters, and he'll put it to his hand. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he'll start off with a Barrenmoor. Then he'll tap for 3 and cast Felden of the Third Path. The turn will then be passed to Shelby, and he'll start off by tapping for 5 and casting Toggo again. Then he'll play a basic swamp as land for turn, making another rock. He'll then tap the swamp to cast Foulmire Knight, and then he'll pass to Jason. And Jason starts his turn off by moving to combat and swinging for 9 at Matt, who doesn't have any choice but to take it. He'll then play a basic forest as land for turn, and then using it, 4 more mana, and Treasure Altar of Dementia, he's able to cast Vivian on the Hunt. She's immediately upticked, and he'll sacrifice Massacre Worm, and the creature he searches for to the battlefield is Sepulchral Primordial. This also triggers Midnight Reaper, and then he'll steal Chandler's Solemn Simulacrum and Shelby's Valduk. And of course he'll go get a basic forest off the Sad Sam. The turn is then passed to Matt, and he'll start off with the Plains, who could have guessed, and then he'll tap for 4 and cast Lightpaws again. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and with nothing for Felden to grab in the graveyard, Chandler just taps for 4 and casts Chain Reaction. Matt will respond by flashing in all that glitters, and when it enters the battlefield, he'll search his library. And the aura that he finds and attaches to Lightpaws is Benevolent Blessing, and the color he chooses is obviously red. The board is then wiped, and this will allow Jason to draw 5 and lose 4. Post-combat, Chandler will play Bachuka Bog, and since there's no Ethan at the table, Jason will be its target, so his graveyard is exiled. The turn is then passed to Shelby. He'll play a basic mountain, then he'll tap for 3 to cast Balaged Recovery. He'll return Valduk to his hand, and then he'll cast Valduk. He equips a rock to him, and then moves to combat and gets to make a 3/1. And said 3/1 is pointed at Chandler, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason. Jason starts off with Exotic Orchard, and then he'll cast Llanowar Elves. After this, he'll cast Meren, and then he'll uptick Vivian to sacrifice the Llanowar Elves, and this will also get him an experience counter. With Vivian's ability, he'll find a Sack Daddy to the battlefield, which he'll immediately sacrifice to get an experience counter and a basic land. And after this, he'll cast Braids, Arisen Nightmare. He'll move to his end step after this, and he has 2 triggers to resolve. With Meren's, he'll return Sack Daddy, and with Braids, he'll sacrifice a swamp, and all of his opponents decline, so he gets to draw 3 cards. The turn is then passed to Matt, and Matt starts off by casting Shram. He'll then cast Armored Ascension on Lightpaws. He'll draw a card off Shram and then tutor off Lightpaws. And the card he tutors is Battle Mastery. He'll then move to combat, and with a 13 power Lightpaws, he'll fly over the battlefield to Jason. There are no responses at the table, so Lightpaws will connect twice, which will give Jason 28 commander damage, killing him. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and the game has now just turned into how the hell do we kill Lightpaws? And Chandler will start off with a Snow Swamp. He'll then tap for 5 and cast Lolth, the Spider Queen, and he'll downtick her to make 2 black spiders with reach. He'll also cast a Morbid Opportunist, and then he'll pass the turn to Shelby, who will play a basic forest, and then tap it to cast Keen Sense onto Valduk. He'll then throw a rock from Valduk to Matt's face, and he'll draw a card from this. After this, he'll cast Death Pits of Wrath, and then he'll equip another rock to Valduk and move to combat. He makes 2 3/1s, and he'll swing them both at Matt, who takes 6. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who will play a Plains, and then he'll cast Chains of Custody onto Lightpaws. He'll draw a card off Shram, and then he'll exile Lolth when it enters the battlefield and tutor his library. And the tutored card is Unquestioned Authority. He'll draw a card when it enters, and then he'll move to combat and hit Shelby in the air with a 16 power Double Strike Lightpaws. And this will unfortunately kill Shelby. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he's praying for something off the top that can save him. He'll tap for 3 and cast Midnight Reaper. After this, he'll tap for 3 and cast Lagomos, Hand of Hatred. He'll then move to combat, make his 2/1, and swing it at Matt. He'll then move to end step, it'll die, and Chandler gets to draw a card. Then staying on end step, Matt will activate War Room to draw a card and lose a life, and then we'll move to his turn. Then on Matt's turn, after immediately untapping, he'll go to combat and swing at Chandler, and Chandler is super dead here. He's got no responses, so yeah, today's winner is Matt and Lightpaws. Way to go! Well everyone, there you have it. The first thing I'd like to say after this game was, Andy, I apologize. I tried my best to play Lady Orca for you, and I didn't even get to cast her. To be fair though, that 2-land hand was super punishing, and I was fighting an uphill battle the entire time. As for everyone else's decks, they were all super cool. Unfortunately, Shelby didn't get to put any rocks on any Death Touch creatures, but I really like the synergy between rocks and Valduk. Meren did an absolute ton for only being a $100 budget deck. I honestly thought Jason had it there in the middle of the game. And of course, Lightpaws did Lightpaws things. I can already see some of you in the comments typing about it. But that's all for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. We appreciate each and every one of you. Special thanks to those of you who put up with our fishing video yesterday. But for now, I hope you all have a smooth day.